I lied, of course, when I said that was our last segment because we will be doing our Rants and Raves. And this week we'll start with Dan Kennedy.
Was that a lie or just simply a misstep?
You're right. Thank you for the delay. I misspoke.
Okay, you misspoke. I have a rant for the Houston Astros, who earlier this week banned a baseball writer named Anthony Fennick from the Detroit Free Press from a news conference that Justin Verlander was giving, now with the Houston Astros, formerly with the Tigers. There's bad blood between Verlander and Fennick. That's fine. There's no reason that Verlander had to take any questions from Fennick if he didn't want to. But for the Astros to literally ban Fennick from the news conference because Verlander had said, I won't talk to anybody if you don't, that just goes way over the line. It violates the guidelines of the Baseball Writers Association of America and the MLB union agreement.
Did the Astros try to justify their move at all, or have they just kept quiet about it?
I haven't seen much in the way of justification. They've said, well, we let him in later. Yeah, after the news conference.
All right, next up, Dan Lothian.
So I have a rant for Peter Alexander, and this kind of ties into what we were just discussing about, those pop-up press avails at the White House.
He's the White House correspondent you're talking about.
Right, so he's the NBC News White House. I think he's a Washington correspondent, but covers the White House, Peter Alexander at NBC. And he asked the president a question about how the president has been going after Joe Biden and saying that he's, all the gaffes that he makes. And he then tried to push the president to say, well, you're criticizing Joe Biden, while at the same time you don't know the difference between, essentially, and I'm sort of paraphrasing here, you don't know the difference between Dayton and Toledo after the massacre there. I thought that was kind of a cheap shot. I mean, there's so many different things that you can go after the president on, and on a daily basis, there's some real heady issues out there. And you're sitting here, going, oh, you criticize one with gaffe, and now you make that same kind of thing. You don't get a lot of opportunities, although he does show up in front of reporters quite a bit lately, but you don't get a lot of opportunities. They're really pressing on some important issues, and I think this also plays into that narrative of the battle that's going on between the president and the press.
Would you have had a problem with it if Alexander had said, you talk about Joe Biden repeatedly getting his facts wrong, but you have made X number of factually incorrect statements since the start of your presidency?
Yes. Yes, I think that would have been a better framed question, and wouldn't have seemed this sort of this petty little thing that and what the president did was he said, oh, by the way, you guys are worse than CNN, which I believe is the first time that has happened. So CNN has moved up the list for the president.
All right, Joanna.
So I, too, have a rant. ABC this week announced the cast of Dancing with the Stars. And in addition to Rob Kardashian and The Bachelorette, guess who's on the list? We just saw him a couple minutes ago, Sean Spicer, the former White House press secretary turned, national laughingstock / pet. And here he is. And, of course, the partisan furor was immediate. And the host, Tom Bergeron, had a tweet that was upset about it. Everyone was freaking out over it. And I thought, at first, oh, how could ABC not have anticipated this backlash? And then I realized
the backlash is the point.
The backlash is the point. This is the network that floated Roseanne. This is a very cynical marketing ploy by means of picking a scab. It's an election year. If we can't use this cruise ship tinsel-coated dancing show to escape from partisan politics, we have nothing left.
All right, on that unhappy note, Mike, and then I'll do
I'm going to make it 4 for 4 with a rant for the well-known fact-check website, Snopes.com, and calling its ongoing battle with, I think, the hilarious news satire site Babylon Bee, the Christian Onion, they call it. Snopes have been calling them fake news as opposed to satire. And the Babylon Bee came up after they had, and it was here, it's CNN purchases industrial-sized washing machine to spin news before publication. All right, so Snopes called this fake news as opposed to satire. All right, Babylon Bee says they're coming after us because we're Christian. The problem is the satire sometimes is so good that people have a hard time discerning that it's satire as opposed to fake news. Facebook said, we're going to demonetize you. In the Wall Street Journal, the owner of Babylon Bee had to write an op-ed this week. Finally, they've apologized, and they're now calling it satire on Snopes.com. So
All right, I will finish up. I want to rave, am I the only one raving, for this really great piece in the latest issue of The New Yorker by Larissa McFarker, who's an author I love to read pretty much whatever she writes about. But this was a piece about Transition House, which is this venerable battered women's shelter in Cambridge. Got its start in the early 1970s, sort of in the aftermath of, maybe even not quite the aftermath of the countercultural movement, had to adapt and change with the times. It's about a local institution, but it is this way of using local history to get at these big currents in national history that I honestly wasn't even aware of. It's a fascinating read. Emily will get grumpy if I try to get her to read it because it's pretty long and she doesn't like long reads. But if you have the time, you should sit down with it.
TLDR.
It's definitely worth the time.